Okay, now that we have looked at assigning work through the Manage Classes tab, we're going to look at, that way is by searching for the resources, we're going to look at how you can simply just browse for resources, which gives you a better picture of all of that's available for students through Journeys. And just making another reference again to your PLG, pages 58, that really gives you, that takes you step by step on assigning work, but 54 through 58 tell you about all the different types of things that you can assign to your students. Okay, so let's flip back over and look at the other method of browsing for resources, which is a little bit more intuitive, I think, as well. So if you click on thinkcentral.com, that's going to take you back to that main teacher dashboard. And then we're going to simply, I'm going to adjust this again, but we are going to just click on Browse over here in the right-hand corner. And then you can search, scroll and search. It's kind of faint, but there's a gray bar over here. Scroll down to your, national journeys and whatever grade level that you're working in. And then this is just a really nice interactive resource over here. So we're going to click on Program Structure. And here you can simply just filter it just like go through it step by step just like you would in the teacher ebook. So I'm going to go to Unit 1 and then Lesson 1. And then even from here I have choices of looking at my focus ball, my whole group instruction, small group instruction, leveled resources, RTI resources. So it's really, really awesome. So just for example, let's look at a small group instruction. Here we have some grab-and-go resources that we can schedule. These would be more just making sure that our students look at these. But if we look at more, the whole group instruction, we can actually assign them the Write Smart Unit 1 Performance Assessment. So they're all going to show up in their things to do. It just depends on if you want it to be something, that they are grading or that is being auto-graded or not. So you can schedule for them to have one of these. It's going to show up more in your Smart Planner schedule for your reading block. But if you want it to actually be something that pops up on the student view, they will have to be assigned. So for example, the response to intervention. Students can do the write-in reader, which is the Lesson 1 pan and fan. So here I would click on assign if I wanted, my whole group to do that or particular students. That's up to me, and I can decide that as I'm going in that. So I can simply just call it the same thing that they're calling it. Unit 1, Lesson 1, Write-in Reader. I can keep it as due. The resource type is already built in there for us, so I don't actually need to select anything for this because you can see that it appears right there. So it knew which one I clicked on, and it's going to be linked to that. But then I can pull students from my class. You don't really have to go through the steps of subject and group unless you do have multiple subjects set up under your class name. So for here, say I just wanted, 2 particular students to do that, I would add them to it. Again, I can adjust the date ranges and the times, and then, oops, I do see that you will need to select the subject in order for the save button to be active. Otherwise, it's grayed out. It doesn't want you to go through and click each of those steps. So then I can hit save. Gives me a little reminder, and now that is also appearing in my assignments for things that I have assigned to my students. You can see that this one is multiple choice, whereas this one is going to be so this will be auto-graded, whereas this one would be something that I would go in and view student work in their write-in reader. So let's take some time now to just look at some of the available resources that you can assign to your students. There's some really great things. You can set up your classroom library by adding, particular books that you want your kids to read, different things that you can assign to different students. So let's just take some time browsing this and checking out some of the great online resources that you can schedule or assign for your students. Okay. Now that we have had time to look at that, I did just want to remind you again about looking in that PLG of pages 54 through 58 if you have any questions about assigning or the different types of assignments for students. But then also make note of the online help section again. I know we checked this out a couple times throughout the training, but it is super helpful, especially if you do have any questions about different things. Sorry, I'm getting some pop-ups. Different things that you want to assign for your students. So if I click on assignments, it's going to just give me a different, how I can do custom assignments. You can even go through some of the setup assignments they have as far as, benchmarks or unit assessments and customize those for your students. If there was something that maybe you didn't touch on in that lesson and you want to remove the questions for that, or maybe just modify it for particular students, you do have the capability to go do that, which is really, really nice tool for teachers. Another one that I wanted to revisit was the classes tab. So just looking at classes, adding classes, just really any question you would have about it. It shows you, where you can reference these different things, how to get to them. Like I said, there are multiple ways to get to pretty much everything in Think Central, which is great. There is a service availability page that can help participants determine when the platform is available or unavailable. So that's helpful as well. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is collaboratively plan your lessons for the next or the first 3 weeks. So you can work individually, work with a partner, work with your team. But I'd like you to take some time to use what you've learned today about journeys, the resources, the online platform, your teacher edition, anything that you can think of, and put it all together and see what really is going to work for your classroom and fit your students' needs. So you will work together, decide where you want to start, what resources you want to use. It's okay to start simple and start slow. Like we talked about earlier in the teacher edition, it's so many resources are offered. Not everything has to be used. Not everything has to be used back to back. But you do want to make sure you're really tying in those key components to your daily lessons for your students. But, look at some of those leveled readers and look at some of the small group instruction activities and decide where would this work best here? Would this work best when I'm working with my students in small groups? So definitely this is a good time to work together. I know teachers always love work time and sharing time at professional development. So please use this time. I'm here if you have any questions at all. I'll be walking around the room. If I think of anything that I want to share with you guys, I'll make sure to pull that up on the PowerPoint as well. As you're working with a partner or with your team, here are some questions just to think about when you're planning your first 3 weeks of school. So how are you addressing the standards? What does your whole group and small group instruction look like? So I know you probably have an idea already of what your reading block and your literacy block looks like, but how's this going to tie in with journeys? How are you going to assess and monitor progress in your students? So are you going to start off with some of those benchmark assessments? Are you going to be doing weekly assessments to check progress before moving on? So really talk about what your plan is for that, because the consistency will be key when you are measuring progress and when you're and just for your students, the consistency is great. And then which digital tools do you think you're going to use for daily instruction? So you might decide that maybe this isn't for you, and maybe you just want your students to log in to Think Central and log into Journeys when it does come time to take assessments. But you also want them to feel comfortable with it. So think about what you could use maybe on a daily or weekly basis that would also get them in the program and doing more. And again, would benefit you because you would be collecting data from the things that they're completing in there. Again, we have about 40 minutes left of this training, and this is your time to really work and plan what you need to plan for the next 3 weeks. I know that teachers have so much extra time, so this might seem silly, but joking. But yes, you need this time to work, so please work with your groups, work with your teammates, and I'm here. I'll be walking around if you have any questions at all, or if you just need to kind of brainstorm and think about what would work best in your class. All right, thank you.